The screen is visible?
Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Screen is visible, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So good evening to one and all. I welcome all the participants for the day 20 for the course Cyber Security. So today we are going to see the topic on HTTP and the corresponding cyber security vulnerability. So in the yesterday session, we have seen what is the meant by HTTP request form and response message format. So all these such things we have seen in the previous session. So today we are going to see what are the vulnerabilities or what are the attacks are possible with this HTTP. Okay, or in other words, we can say what are the attacks or being engaged with the application layer. Okay, so what are the protocols we have seen at the application layer? That is HTTP, DNS, FTP. There are so many protocols are available, can be used at the application layer. Okay, so today we are going to see what are the attacks related with the HTTP protocol. Okay. So the main objective of today's session is to make you known about the HTTP, that is Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and the corresponding cyber security vulnerabilities. So related with the attacks which are possible with the HTTP protocol, and we'll be seeing web attacks and web threats. Okay, all these we'll be seeing in today's session. Okay, the outcome of the session is that the students may be able to understand the Hypertext Transfer Protocol and their corresponding cyber security vulnerabilities. Okay, so these are the outlines of today's session. Okay, we'll be seeing what is meant by a web application and the introduction about the web application and what are the technologies involved for the web application, for writing the web application, and we'll be seeing the structure of web application and the related HTTP attacks. There are two attacks we are going to see. That is, one is HTTP flood attack, the other attack is DNS amplification attack. So these two protocols are used in the application layer. Okay, so then we'll be seeing what is the setup of a web application. That is, we'll be seeing the structure of the web application and what are the possible hacking with the web application, and we'll be seeing the anatomy of hacking and what are the threats possible in the web application. So some of the list is given here: cross-site scripting, SQL injection, buffer overflow, zero-day attack, directory traversal or forceful browsing attack, cookie or session poisoning attack, parameter or form tampering attack, and the last one is error message interception. So for all these threats, how can we overcome or how can we prevent the threats? That's the countermeasures. Okay. Okay, so let me get into the what is meant by a web application. So any application that is served with the help of the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that is HTTP or HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure Protocol. Okay, so that is called as web application. Okay, so the web application will be served from the remote computer, so which will be acting as both the client machine and as well as the server. Okay. So why the web attacks are being going on? That is, everything is on the web, on the internet. So we are having can have the banking portals on the internet, e-commerce, that is online shopping on the internet, and admin interfaces. So everything can be accessed or can be given online on the internet. Okay, so there are some traditional firewalls won't do not block all these web attacks. Okay, so what does mean by OWASP? That is OWASP is Open Web Application Security Project. So you might have heard this in the prior session. That is, you can get into this website through www.owasp.org. So this is nothing but a worldwide, not for a profit charitable organization. So this is mainly focusing on improving the security of the software. Okay, so this is one such kind of project which is giving some awareness or security measures to the organization. Okay, so the main mission of this project is to make the software security visible to everyone, to individual users as well as the any organization. Okay, and they'll be informing and they can go for making the decisions about the software security risk. So that is the main mission of this open web application security project. Okay, so here some of the 10 projects were listed in this. The first named is injection, second one broken authentication and session management, and third one is cross-site scripting project, then insecure direct object references, security misconfiguration, sensitive data exposure, missing function level access control, and cross-site request forgery, and using the components with known vulnerabilities, and the last one is unvalidated redirects. So these are some of the projects which have been listed as the top 10 in the open web application project. Okay, so all these will be depicting the security measures that should be get on to any individual, or any individual should know all these projects. What are all the projects is going on in the OWASP, so that everyone get awareness about the cyber security. Okay, so coming on to the introduction part. So majority of the websites are facing so many vulnerabilities. So vulnerabilities means weaknesses faced by the website or the internet. Okay, and hacking is most possible in web applications which are accessing openly on the internet. Okay, and the web developers, they are not well versed with the security issues because of the applications they are facing vulnerabilities. Okay, the web application run in the browser, and any security loophole in the browser will lead to some vulnerabilities in the web application. Okay, so these are some of the technologies involved in the web applications. They are JavaScript, XML, Ajax, SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, HTML, XHTML, PHP, etc. Okay, so using this technology, a web application is developed. Okay, and here you can see the typical structure of the web application. So it flows from user to the database server. So it starts, the user will be requesting to the internet, by the internet, that is some content to be accessed. Okay, so the request will be passed on to the web server in order to get the required reply for the user. So it will pass the firewall and the IDS, that is intrusion detection system, then it moves on to the web server. Okay, so from the web server, if the proper domain, so suppose the user is asking for to access any domain, then it will be getting, the web server will be searching for the particular domain, to it resolves the domain name into the IP address. So if it is not so, it will get from the database server. Then after receiving from the database server, the web server will be sending the reply to the proper reply to the user. Okay, this was the web application structure. Okay, so now we'll see about HTTP, the attack related with the HTTP protocol. So that attack is called as the HTTP flood attack. So already we have seen HTTP is a protocol mainly used for the internet. Okay, for accessing the internet, we'll be going with the HTTP protocol. Okay, so this HTTP flood attack is an application layer DOS attack. DOS in the sense denial of service attack, which always targets the website and the online services. Okay, so there are two main methods of HTTP flood attacks. The first method is, or first mode is, HTTP get flood and HTTP post flood. So already we have seen what are the methods used in HTTP message format. There are so many methods are available. So two such methods are get method and post method. So when usually we'll be using the get method. So get method is since getting a request. Okay. And post method is that when you will use a post method means suppose if the user if they are submitting any forms, okay, then they'll go on using the post method in order to submit the form onto the web server. Okay, and other than these two methods, there are so many methods: put method, delete method, head method, all these are there. Now we are going to see the two methods, how the attacks come into the HTTP protocol. So first we'll see about the HTTP get flood method. Okay, so in this picture you can see in HTTP get flood, the attack is, okay, so this is called the attacker. So the attacker, what they will do, they will send the HTTP request message. So what is the type of the message they will be sending? HTTP get. Okay, so they will be sending the request message to the server. Okay, the attacker will be sending the HTTP get request to the server. So in turn, the server will be going to reply with the for example, if the request is downloading a large file, or it may be a image, or it may be a script from the web server. So the web server will be sending the corresponding reply to the attacker. Okay, if it is the case, now see in this picture, there are so many requests sending from the attackers in the request of downloading very large file from the web server. So this is the get flood. The get request is getting flooded to the web server. Okay, so that the web server could not respond to the, it is getting on, the traffic is overloaded at the web server. So that the legitimate user, if the legitimate user, what is legitimate means? The true user, who are the user of the browsers, okay, web browsers, okay, and the legitimate user, if they are sending request, so that the web server could not respond to the legitimate user, because the attacker is going on sending the HTTP request message to the web server. Okay, so the web server or the victims, so it is so busy, the web server is busy in handling the attacker's request. Okay, and they cannot process the request from the legitimate user. Hence, the legitimate user is receiving the response that is service unavailable. So this is called HTTP get fled attack. Okay. The next attack which we are going to see in related with the HTTP is HTTP post flood attack. Okay. So coming on to the post flood attack, in that the attacker will be looking for the forms. So this is one such kind of forms in the target website. So the first the attacker will be seeing the looking for the some forms in the target website. So he will go on use that particular form. Using the form, the attackers create the HTTP post request attack on the website. Okay. So first they will be going on searching the any forms available on the website. Then using that form, the attackers will go on creating so many number of HTTP post requests, and they will send it to the website, by which they will be sending a large amount of data and large amount of post request, which looks like legitimate forms, which is sent by the legitimate users. Okay. So this is the HTTP post flood attack. Okay. See here, the attackers evade CDN service. What is meant by evade? The meaning for evade is avoid. So the attackers will be avoiding the CDN service. Here you can see the CDN service. What is meant by CDN means the content, there is cloud content delivery network, or in other words we can say content distribution network. Okay. So there will be a randomized, by randomizing the programmers, the HTTP request attackers will be managed to bypass the CDN service. Okay. So in order to have the attackers will have a randomized programmers. So with that, the attackers will be bypass this CDN service. So what is the main goal of this CDN? What is the purpose of the CDN service is that it is a distributed network which is acting as a proxy server. Okay. So proxy server, and they'll be having the data centers also. So the goal is to provide high availability and performance by distributing the service to the end users. So CDN servers will be offering service to the end users. That's the main by which they can improve the performance. Okay. So also the CDN will be serving a large portion of internet content today. So which will be including some web objects such as text, messages, graphics, and scripts. And it also provides service to the downloadable objects such as media files, softwares, documents. Okay. And also it provide service to the applications such as e-commerce portals, live streaming medias, and on-demand streaming media, and social media site. So these are the services which is provided by the CDN service. CDN means content delivery network, or otherwise called as content distribution network. Okay. So what this attacker is avoiding this service of the CDN. Okay. And so attackers avoid and this bypass the CDN servers, and they will get into the backend web server. Okay. So by randomizing programmers, the HTTP GET request attackers manage to bypass the CDN servers and request the web page to relieve from the backend server. Okay. So now the backend web server is designed to hinder or to protect large amount of requests. Okay, so what does this backend server will do means it will protect the so many initially it is the attacker is sending so many number of requests to the DNS service, and this DNS service is avoided and it will direct it to the backend server. What does this backend server will do means it will restrict some of the request from the attackers, and therefore the service is unavailable very quickly. So the attacker also do the parameter changing also. They will go on changing the parameters, traffic parameters by using different programmers. So thus they will go on preventing some traditional security systems also to block the traffic by signatures. So this is called as HTTP post-flood attack. Okay. So now by this time we have seen two types of attacks by the HTTP protocol. One is HTTP get flood attack. The other one is HTTP post flood attack. Okay. Now let's move on to the, okay. So here is the picture, that is the attackers can go and change the parameters of the request. So he will be sending the malicious post request to the web server. Okay. So in that request message, he can also go for changing the parameters of the request message also. Okay. So next we'll see the next attack, that is called as DNS amplification attack. So DNS means domain name service, domain name system. So which is a protocol which can be used in the application layer. So what is the attack related with the application layer means we can go on stating the HTTP flood, that is get flood attack, and HTTP post flood attack. Then the next one we can also go with DNS amplification attack. Okay. So what is DNS amplification attack is that it is a sophisticated denial of service attack using the DNS servers to amplify the attack. So amplify means it is going to be multiplied. The attack is going to be multiplied. Okay. So here you can see, so this is called a domain name. Okay, example.com is the domain name. So for the corresponding domain name, the IP address is 192.0.43.10. Okay. Similarly, for the google.com domain, the IP address is given. Okay. So what does this functionality of the DNS? So the DNS resolves or it converts the domain name into the corresponding IP address in order to visit the corresponding website. Okay. So the computer must find out the IP address of the example.com. So therefore the computer is called as DNS resolver. This is the domain name given, and the legitimate user who is going to browse is going to type www.exam.com at the browser. So the computer is called as the DNS resolver. So what is the functionality of DNS resolver? Which converts the domain name into the IP address. So the request is sent to the web server, that is DNS server. So it accesses the request received from the legitimate user, and in response the DNS server is getting the IP address to the legitimate user. Okay. In case if the DNS server does not know the answer, then what it will do? It will ask the, so in this picture you can say if the DNS server is not having the answer for the request of the legitimate user, it directs the request to the DNS root name server. Okay. In case if this DNS root name server is not also having the answer for the request, then it will reply with try some other DNS server. So that DNS server, the request will be forwarded to the corresponding DNS server. Okay. Then the corresponding DNS server will get the reply and send the corresponding IP address of the example.com, and it will be sent to the corresponding legitimate user. Okay. This was the functionality of the DNS resolver. Now, let's get into how the DNS gets affected, or it's getting attacked with the amplification. That attack is called as DNS amplification attack. Okay, we'll see that. Okay. So what does this attacker will do? So in order to launch this DNS amplification attack, so first the attacker performs two main malicious tasks. The first task is he will go on spoofing the IP address. What is meant by spoofing? So spoofing is nothing but imitating. Okay. So getting the copy of the which looks like similar to that of a true one. Okay, that is called as spoofing. Okay, first. So the first the attacker will spoof the IP address of the DNS resolver and place the spoofed IP address with the victim's IP address. This because that is, it will be sent to the victim's server. Okay, so here is the attacker. He is sending the spoofed IP address to the DNS server, and the DNS server is sending a reply to the victim's web server. Okay. The next task of the attacker, what he will do means the attacker find the internet domain registered with the many DNS records. Okay. So here you can see in this picture. So the attackers are sending spoofed IP address to the DNS server, and what does it? It is getting the query is that the DNS query to get all the records of the example.com domain. So it is sent with the spoofed IP address to the DNS server. Okay, so during this attack, the attackers will send the DNS query to request the entire list of the DNS records for the domain. Okay, so what does this DNS server will do? It will respond with a large number of reply. Sometimes it may be 100 times larger than the larger one. Okay, the reply is going to be a larger one. So if the attacker generates, for example, generates 300 megabits per second of DNS queries, and it gets amplified at the DNS server, that is in such a way that 300 megabits per second. Okay. So the thing is that so is the screen is available? I mean, it's the screen is visible to everyone. Any response? Okay, ma. Thank you, thank you. Okay, let me go on and start the sharing the screen. Check whether now the screen is visible or not. check whether now the screen is visible or not. Can I have the response? Okay, ma, okay. Okay. It's getting out of the broadcasting. Shall I continue? Yes. Shall I continue? Okay. So the attacker will be sending a DNS query to get all the records with the spoofed address in the data rate of 3 megabits per second. And at the DNS server, it gets amplified 300 megabits per second. Okay. And the reply will be sent to the victim's web server. Okay. Soon the victim's web server will become so busy in handling all these such kinds of requests. So they cannot service any request from the legitimate user. So this is called as DNS amplification attack. Okay. So here you can see the attacker is going on sending the DNS query at the rate of 3 megabits per second, and this DNS server is gets amplified by 300 megabits per second and will send it to the victim's web server. So if the legitimate user asks for any request to the victim's web server, then it does not, it could not reply to the legitimate user because it is getting so many requests from the attackers. So the legitimate user is getting the services unavailable for the user. Okay. So this is called as DNS amplification attack. Okay. So these are the two attacks which you have seen. Next we'll coming to the what are the web attacks are possible. Okay. So this is the content flow. We are going to proceed with the next coming slides. So first we'll be seeing about the web application setup, and the next thing we'll be seeing what are the objectives of hacking in the web application. Next we'll be going on seeing with the what is the anatomy of the attack. Anatomy in the sense what is the motive, what is the procedural steps for an attacker that holds good. Okay. Then we'll be seeing the what are the possible threats in web application, then the countermeasures. Okay. We'll see what is the web application setup. That is, we'll be having the client and the server software application. That is going to be the client and the server missions going to be interacted with the help of the HTTP protocol. Okay. So normally the modern applications will be written in Java language or similar to Java language, and they'll be run on the distributed application server. So that will be connected to the multiple data sources. So some of the examples for web applications are email, that is web mail, online shopping or online retail sales, wikis, etc. So here you can see this picture. So that is the web application setup. So here you are having the web client will be sending the request. That is, the request will be in the form of HTTP request. Okay. And the reply will be the HTTP reply. Okay. HTTP request will be in the form of plain text, that is clear text or SSL. And the HTTP reply will be in the form of HTML code or JavaScript or VB script. Okay. So the request will be passing on to the firewall. And finally, it reaches the web server. So the web server may be Apache web server or Netscape or IIS. Okay, and the web server will be having so many number of web applications that will be stored in the database. Okay, so for retrieving any information from the database, we can use structured query language, that is SQL database is maintained here. Okay, again I'm getting. Okay, I think I am out of screen. Yes. Okay, here, yes, let me get into it. Why? I don't know. So check whether now the screen is visible. Could everyone see the screen? Any voice response? Okay, thank you, Ma. Thank you. Okay, so these are some of the hackings that is possible in the web applications. So the hacking methods are defacing websites. So defacement of websites in the sense the hackers will be go on changing the front page appearance of the websites. Okay, so it looked like some other original websites. Okay, so they'll do some magic on the web pages, front pages appearance will be completely changed. That is called as website defacement. Okay, next thing is stealing the credit card informations and exploiting the server side scripting, exploiting the buffer overflows, employ malicious code, device attack, then destruction of data. So these are some of the hacking possible in the web applications. Okay, so let's see what is the anatomy of the attack. So the attackers will be go by following these steps. So first the attackers will be go on scanning which are all the possibilities that to hack some informations. Okay, then they'll go on gathering the information, then testing will be carried out, then planning for the attack, then finally launching the attack on the victims systems. Okay, so this is the anatomy of the attack. Then we'll be seeing the threats of possible in the web application. So the first one is cross-site scripting attack, then SQL injection, buffer overflow, zero-day attack, directory traversal or forceful browsing, cookie or session poisoning, parameter or form tampering. The last one is error message interception. Okay, first we'll see the cross-site scripting. So this kind of scripting is otherwise called as XSS scripting. Okay, so all these we have also explained in the previous session also. Okay, so this is one such vulnerability which is present in the website. This is possible in the website or web applications. So what does this hackers will do means they will insert the their own code, their client side code will be inserted. So that moreover the client side will be code will be written in the JavaScript. So they will insert the client side code into the web pages. Okay. So when this code along with the original web page gets displayed in the browser. So the browser may be Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox, etc. So this will allow the hackers to gain the personal informations which will be provided by the users of the web browsers. Okay. So with this cross-site scripting, the hackers will gain the or they will get the accessibility of the web page. Okay, so there are two attacks are possible with this cross-site scripting. One is the stored attack, the other one is the reflected attack. Okay, so the impact for this cross-site scriptings are phishing attack, installation of a Trojan horse program, hijacking user session, and modifying the content. So we have also seen what is meant by phishing. I think many of them know what do you mean by phishing attack. Yes. We have seen Trojan horse, worms, viruses, all such kinds of attacks we have seen earlier. Okay. So phishing is nothing but it's a method of trying to gather some personal information through emails and websites. Okay. Uh, that is, the attacker will go on with the misleading websites. Okay, that is misleading websites in the sense it will give the appearance or impression about the true website. Okay, so it's often directs the user to enter the personal information at the fake website. So it will direct to the fake website and it will get all the information about the user's information, so which matches the look and feel of the legitimate site. Legitimate sites means it's a original website. Okay, so the main thing is that phishing is a technique to cheat the users to get into a fake website. Okay. Okay. Now let's see cross-site scripting attack. That is, the hacker will be injecting the script, client-side script into the website. Okay. And web application will be a compromised web application, and it retrieves the compromised page content and it will be sent to the user. Okay, so it will be sent to the hacker's server so that hacker can access the user's web page. Okay, so let's see how does this cross-site scripting works. Okay, the web server will be getting all the data from the web client, that is using the request method. There is a get method or post method. Okay, what does this hacker will do means it will they will go on inserting the client side codes into the data. So the code will be usually in the JavaScript language. Okay, so for example, the script can be like this. So the hacker will be inserting this code. Okay, this is a script of the JavaScript. That is, it starts with the script alert followed by the some message within the codes. Okay, closing the script. Okay, so this code will be inserted with the data. Okay, we'll see the example. So here you can have the hackers here. The hackers will find out the website. There is, for example, www.mainprovider.com. So which is the website which suffers from the cross-site scripting. Okay, so what does this hacker will do means they will induce the user to click on they'll send the mail. The user will be getting the mail asking to click on this hyperlink. Click here for getting the gifts. Okay, so when the user clicks this hyperlink, the malicious script, that is what does this hacker will do, they will add the client code into the data. Okay, the malicious script will be get executed. Okay, see here. So this is the script added onto the data. Okay, JavaScript code is added onto the data. Then so that while the user click here, it will direct it to the vulnerable site, which is a unknown site, which is not a legitimate site, original site. It is not a original site. So from the vulnerable site, the user will be asked to provide some personal informations. Okay, so that web browser will be accessed by the hackers. So your browser correctly interprets this script and runs the script. If the script instructs the browser to send a cookie to the hacker's computer, so the user will be directed to a fake web page of his online banking site. So from that, the hacker go on getting the banking transactional details from the user. So this is what happens in cross-site scripting. Okay. So let's see what are the types of cross-site scripting attacks. There are three types over there. One is non-persistent attacks, and the second one is persistent attack, and third one is DOM based attack. So DOM is document object model. So first we'll see non-persistent cross-site scripting attack. It is otherwise called as reflected cross-site scripting attacks. So reflected attacks means, so the whatever the hackers injecting the code will be reflected off the web server, such as in the error message or search result or any other response. It includes some of the input sent to the server as part of the request. Okay. The thing is that whenever the user to click on some malicious link, or they will go on submitting any forms, the injected code travels to the vulnerable web server, that is unknown website. Okay, so which reflects the attack back to the user's browser. So then the browser will be executing that particular code because it came from it will predict as it comes from a trusted server. So the user will be thinking that they are using a legitimate website, but it's not the case. They are accessing the vulnerable website or vulnerable web server. Okay, so this is what non-persistent SSS. Coming on to the persistent SSS, it is also called a stored SSS. So in the persistent type of SSS attack, the code, whatever the hacker what does this hacker will do? It will inject the inside the code that will be stored on the database. Okay, storage that is database will be made that. Okay, it is visible to the other user also. So one of the example for this persistent SSS is blog websites. So and go on add some SSS code along with the comment text. So there will be no validation of the code, or filtering is not present in the server. So the SSS code can successfully save down to the database. So after this, if anyone user open the page into the browser, then SSS code can execute and perform the harmful actions or will be done there. Okay. So in this case, the hacker can also steal the cookies and they can go on modify the web pages. Okay. So here you can have the example script. So this is a JavaScript code. Okay. So here the hacker is adding the document.cookie. So he is adding some cookies onto it. Okay, we'll see here. Okay, so this is the hacker's browser. So the hacker is sending the HTTP request with the JavaScript, SSS JavaScript, and it is passed on to the server, and the server saves the corresponding SSS code onto the database. So whatever the hacker's browser sending the request, that request will be stored onto the database. Okay, so the request is containing the SSS client code with that. Okay. Then now in the normal user browser is going to access, then from the database they will be getting the response. Will be received to the normal browser. With the SSS JavaScript code. So whatever the hackers injected the SSS code, that will be stored on the database, and after whenever the normal user using the browser, then they will be accessing from the code will be executed. The users will use the browser. SSS code will be in the browser. Now let's you can see a block comment here. Okay. Example for let's SSS attack. So I told DOM is document object model, and DOM is otherwise called as type 0 SSS attack. Okay, this is an so what is DOM? In the sense, it is acting, which is a programming interface. DOM is nothing but a interface that gives the developers the ability to access the document, that is the web page. So through the interface, DOM interface, the user can access the web page, and they can go on manipulating it by executing the operations, or this interface can defines the structure of the web page. Structure of the web page or document by connecting the scripting language to the actual web page. Okay. So coming on to the DOM-based attack. So wherein which the attack payload is executed. So here the DOM environment can be modified by the attacker. So in the victim's browser used by the original client-side script, so that the client-side code runs in an unexpected manner. Okay. So the page itself does not change, but client-side code contained in the page execute differently due to the modification of the corresponding code. Okay. So here you can clearly see what does this DOM-based XSS workflow. So here you can see the attacker. Okay. So what does this attacker will do? The attacker first crafts the URL containing the malicious string and send it to the victim. So victim is nothing but the user. Okay. So what does this user will do? It is tricked. The user is tricked to open the link, some anonymous link. Okay, and requesting the malicious URL from the website. So it goes to the website. So what is this website receives this particular request which is sent by the user, and it does not include this malicious string in the response. Okay, then what is this fourth step? This user's browser execute those legitimate script which is the malicious script to be inserted into the web page. So now the browser executes the malicious script inserted by the attacker. Okay, inserted into the web page by the client side code. So now the client side code, whatever the attacker inserted, that will be executed in the user's web browser. Okay, now the attacker can gain whatever user sensitive information that will be directed to the attacker's server. This is what happened in DOM based SSS. Okay. So next threat is or attack, web attack is SQL injection. So SQL means structured query language, and in order to retrieve any information from the database, normally we go with the language called as structured query language. Okay, so SQL injection means it is the ability to inject the SQL commands into the database engine. Okay, so SQL injection is very vulnerability that exists on the server side and poses a risk to the database server of the application. So with this SQL injection, the attacker can go on, insert some data and delete data onto the database, and they can attacker can also steal some private information from the database, and they can also access to the restricted areas without the proper credentials. So these are all the possibilities when going on with the SQL injection injected by the attacker. Okay. Okay. So SQL injection could be possible with web form input box, address bar. Okay, in order to gain the access to the resources, and that can go on changes with the data. Okay, so here you can clearly see how the SQL injection works. So here you are having select start from users where the username equals username is given and the password is given. Okay, so what will be the attack here is the input of attack will be at the username. It's given anything or 1 equals 1. After this attack, after the given input, so the access is granted for the attacker. So you can have the log of the some blog comments opened here by the attack. Okay. So this is depicting the original one, but it's a fake one in order to attract the users. Okay. Next web attack is buffer overflow. So from this picture itself, we can clearly notify that it is the buffer means it's storage. So when the storage space is maximum, when it reaches the maximum, then it cannot hold excess things. Yes. Okay, the mechanism is that when the amount of data to be added to a buffer exceeds the size of the buffer, or it reaches the maximum size of the buffer, then it results in a catastrophic error. Okay, so this buffer overflow occurs whenever the errors occurs in the programming, or when a boundary checks are not done fully or skipped. So this attack will happen. Okay, so after the successful execution of this attack, the hacker can go on putting a server down. Okay. And so the installation of backdoor happens, and the hacker can go on gaining some super users privilege in the sense the access privilege, where they can go on accessing some data or restricted in accessing the data, such like that privileges, grant or revoking of the databases. Okay. So buffer is defined as a storage space for the data. So buffer overflow occurs when the user inputs exceeds the maximum size of the buffer, thus overwriting the other areas of the memory, and goes on with corrupting the areas. Okay, it's a well-known vulnerability. The attacker will inject the data with the shell code into the allocated stack area. So this is done by overwriting the return addresses. Okay. So here you can see the shell code. So some overwriting the shell code addresses is mentioned here. So this is a buffer overflow, and one such example is also mentioned here. So here you can see the character buffer of size 1024. So beyond the size, the data cannot be accessed. Okay, so the malicious users enters, if the user enters greater than 1024 characters, so that the buffer cannot store more than 1024 characters. So the extra characters will overflow the buffer. So this is buffer overflow attack. Okay. And coming on to the next attack is called 0-day attack. So 0-day attacks mostly takes place between the time. Between the time a vulnerability is discovered by the attacker. So on the time that the vendor issues a corrective patch. So moreover, the 0-day attack or only available as a handcrafted exploit code. Okay, this is a vulnerability is the launching point for further exploitation of the web application and the environment. So here there won't be any firewall. So here in this attack, lack of firewall and which enables the heuristic scanning also. The next attack is cookie or session poisoning. So already we have seen what is the main use of cookies is that we will be calling the HTTP protocol as a stateless protocol. So what do you mean by stateless protocol is that so why? Because we are calling that as stateless protocol is that the HTTP won't have the trace of client's history or transactions. Okay, history of the client's informations or transactions. Okay, so for that purpose we are introducing a concept called cookie. So the cookie will use to trace the client's informations. Okay, so the cookies are used to maintain the session state in the otherwise called as the stateless HTTP protocol. Okay. So many web application uses the cookies. So why we are using cookies is that to save the informations like user ID, passwords, account numbers, timestamps, etc. So the web application will be using the cookies for saving all those informations. Okay, it involves the modification of the content of the cookies also. So cookie poisoning means, so whatever the cookies parameter is there, the hacker will go on modify those cookies parameters. Okay, that is cookie poisoning. In fact, is also similar to that of a parameter tampering attack also. So where the parameters are stored in the cookies. So using this cookie poisoning attack, the hacker can go on gaining some unauthorized information about the other users. They can go on stealing their personal identity of the user also. Okay, so here you can see here is the cookie and with the following parameters. What are the parameters of cookies mentioned here is session ID and basket size, charges of the user account and the total price. So there are 4 parameters over there. So the hackers can go on modify this cookies parameters. Okay. So with this modification of the parameter, they can go on gaining some or they can go on steal some personal identity of the users. Okay. So next attack is parameter or form tampering, which is similar to that of the previous thing which we have seen now. Okay, so it takes the advantage of hidden field that work as the only security measure in some applications. The thing is that the hacker can go and modify the hidden field values, which cause the web application to incorporate. So this tampering so what is parameter tampering is that it's a form of hacking that creates a change in the URL that is associated with the web page. Okay, so it is possible for the hacker to gain access to any information, whatever the information entered by the user, that will be affected on the web page, and it will be redirected to the hacker server for the unauthorized usage. Okay. So with this activity, the hacker can gain some credit card, some personal information such as credit card numbers, government issued identification numbers, and other data. Okay. So here you can see how the parameter tampering is going on. So this is the URL. So what does this hacker will do means they will go and change the or modify the URL. Okay. So here you can see the patient ID is mentioned here is 790865. Okay. In the next thing, they can go and modify it. Patient ID equals star. So they will get all the information about related with the patient details. So all the details of the patients will be directed to the hacker's server. So with this, they can go and steal any personal information. So the next attack is directory traversal or forceful browsing. So directory traversal means the hacker can go on trace the directory path. Okay. The thing is that the attack occurs when the attacker is able to browse the directories and the files outside the normal application access. Okay. So the attackers can go on access the contents and access these restricted pages also, and they can also gain some confidential informations, and they can also go for locating the source code. Okay, so all these can possible with the directory traversal. That is mainly this attack is going on with the directory structure of the application. So the hacker will go on, will trace the directory path. Okay. So the path traversal attack aims to access the files. So whatever the user is going to access files and directories, that path will be traced by the hacker. That is called as directory traversal attack. Okay. So the attacker will be using this ... sequence. This sequence will be used by the attacker so that he can move up to the root directory of the root directory, thus permitting navigation through the file system. So the attacker can gain access to how many directories it's going to climb in order to get the desired directory. Okay, so that the attackers view the restricted files or more powerful commands on the web servers, which is leading to a compromise of the web server. So here you can see. So here the file name is 20 March 2003.html. So the web server. So what is the web server here? Getnews.asp server. Okay. So the web server getnews.asp retrieving the file of 20 March 2003.html from the web server's file system. So it will render it and send it back to the browser, which presents it to the user. So now the hacker will use this double ... Okay. So the attacker causes this getnews.asp server to retrieve the files, all these files ... So from the file system and send it back to the attacker's browser. Okay. So this is directory traversal attack. Okay. The last one is error message interception. So here you can see the error message displayed on the web page. So from the error message, the information, what are the information that is displayed on the error message will be given some tips to the, given some information to the hacker. So the information will be used to determine the technologies used in the web applications, or it may be information about determining whether the attempt was successful or not, and the information is all about receiving some hints for the attack methods to try for the next time. The hackers will go on trying to inject the attacks for the next time. So these are some of the informations which will be displayed on the error message. So this is called as error message interception attack. Okay. And what are the countermeasures to overcome all these such kinds of web attacks or web threats? Will be the validation of queries and validation of form fields and the validation of hidden fields against any specification. And the next thing is filtering out the scripts output. So whatever the output you are getting, we have to go with the filtering scripts. And next is structuring the request, such as what are the parameters or supplied that is treated as the data rather than the executable content. And next, validating the input length in the forms and carrying out the bounds checking. And next thing, defining access right to the protected areas of the websites and applying the checks or hotfix. Next, updating the web servers with the